I'm Ethan Miller, 18 years old and fresh off the SATs. I figured my rivalry with Avery Frost, the school's prom queen, would finally end with graduation. Then she posted something on Instagram. I like you, close friends only. My fingers moved on their own, tapping out a comment. Idiot forgot to hide it from me? The next second, my phone buzzed with her call, her voice tight with suppressed rage. Mr. Harrison was right, Ethan. You really are dense as a brick. I froze. That wasn't the reaction I'd expected. Whoa, hold on. I protested, a little hurt. I was just messing with you. Why the personal attack? A few seconds of silence, then a long sigh. Tomorrow's class get-together. You better be there, or you're dead. With that, she hung up. I stood there, phone still in hand, completely stunned. Becoming rivals with Avery had been an accident. Really, it was after our sophomore year midterms. I was heading to Mr. Harrison's English class office, as usual, for a lecture. The moment I stepped through the door, I trod on a crumpled paper. I glanced down and couldn't help but laugh. Whose handwriting is this? Looks exactly like something my dog would scratch on the sidewalk. The words were barely out of my mouth when I saw Avery standing by the desk, her face ashen. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she glared at me. Only then did I realize how hurtful my words had been. But, being young and reckless, I didn't apologize. Instead, her reaction seemed to amuse me. From that day on, we became rivals. We'd compete for the top spot on every test. At every school event, we'd find ourselves on opposite sides. Even in the cafeteria, we'd race for the last barbecue rib. This went on through all of high school. I never imagined she'd post something like that on graduation day. Even more, I never expected it to be close friends only, and that I'd be on that list. That night, I couldn't sleep. Avery's face was all I could see. Her profile as she listened intently in class. Her ponytail flying when she ran track. Her serene smile when she won an award. And her flushed cheeks when I'd managed to annoy her. Turns out, without even realizing it, I'd memorized so many little details about her. The next evening, I headed to the class get-together, a knot of nerves in my stomach. It was at a fancy restaurant, and our class had booked a large private room. When I pushed open the door, most everyone was already there. Amidst the chatter, my eyes immediately found Avery. She was on a corner sofa, wearing a simple light blue dress, looking like a goddess. A few guys were chatting her up, but she just gave brief replies, her gaze occasionally drifting toward the door. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away, but I caught the faint blush on her cheeks. Ethan, over here. Michael Jensen, the class president, waved me over. I walked toward him. Heard you and Avery got into the same university? Michael asked casually, handing me a soda. I paused. No way. How come I don't know that? Seriously, Avery said it herself. She checked the admissions list. You two are both headed to Eastern Coast University. ECU was my first choice, but I hadn't checked my results yet. I instinctively glanced at Avery and saw her secretly watching me. Our eyes met again. This time, she didn't look away. Instead, she lifted her chin slightly, with that characteristic haughty air of hers. But in her bright eyes, there seemed to be something else, an emotion I couldn't quite read. The party roared on. Someone suggested truth or dare. The bottle spun, landing on Avery first. Truth or dare? Chloe Davis, who was hosting the game, asked. Avery hesitated. Truth. Is there anyone you like here? Chloe asked with a sly grin. The room fell silent. Everyone held their breath. Avery's face flushed crimson almost instantly. Her gaze flickered toward me, then quickly dropped. Yes, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But that single word hit the room like a thunderclap. Catcalls and whistles erupted. Who is it? Who is it? Everyone clamored. Avery stood up. I'll take a drink. She picked up the glass in front of her and chugged it. The game continued. My heart, however, couldn't settle down. For a moment, I was almost certain she'd looked at me. But logic told me it was impossible. Why would Avery like me? We were rivals, for crying out loud. The bottle spun again, this time pointing at me. Ethan, truth or dare? Chloe asked. I glanced at Avery. She was looking down, pretending to be on her phone. But I knew she was listening. Dare, I said. Chloe's eyes lit up. Call the first person in your phone's call history and tell them I like you. Everyone immediately got excited, hooting and hollering. I reluctantly pulled out my phone and opened my call history. The first contact was Avery Frost. Last night, 10:23 p.m. Call duration, 1 minute 47 seconds. Everyone saw it. The room went dead silent. I felt my face burning. Avery looked up, surprised, staring at me. Call her. Call her, someone shouted, and then everyone joined in. Gritting my teeth, I hit the dial button. The familiar ringtone echoed in the quiet room. It was coming from Avery's direction. She looked at her phone screen, then at me, her face full of bewilderment. Then she answered. Say it, Ethan, everyone urged. I took a deep breath and spoke into the phone. I like you. On the other end, Avery was silent. In the room, everyone held their breath. A few seconds later, Avery softly replied, I know, and she hung up. The uproar almost blew the roof off, but I just stood there stunned. Her reaction was too calm, as if she'd known I would say that. The game dissolved into chaos. I took the opportunity to slip out onto the balcony for some fresh air. The summer night breeze brushed my face, carrying a faint floral scent. I leaned against the railing, replaying everything that had just happened. Why'd you run off? A familiar voice sounded behind me. I turned around. Avery was standing a short distance away. Moonlight spilled over her, bathing her in a silver glow. She looked too beautiful to be real. It's too loud in there, I replied, feeling my heart pound. She walked a few steps closer and leaned against the railing beside me. We stood in silence for a moment. So, you really got into ECU? I broke the quiet. She nodded. Yeah, finance program. I haven't checked my admissions yet, I said. Probably computer science. You got in, she said softly. I checked. I was dumbfounded again. Why would she check my results? So that Instagram post. I gathered my courage and asked the question that had been bothering me all day. It's true, she interrupted, turning to look directly into my eyes. Close friends only. The night wind ruffled her long hair, a few strands brushing my arm. It tickled just like my feelings right now. Why? I heard myself ask. Aren't we supposed to be rivals? A faint smile touched Avery's lips, a rare sight. Because you remember all my likes and habits, and even when we argue, you know exactly how to get under my skin. Her gaze softened. If I didn't care, how would you know me so well? I stared at her, unsure how to respond. Remember that time I had a fever and missed school? She asked softly. I nodded. She hadn't been in class that day, and I'd been restless all day long. The next day, there was a box of medicine and a note on my desk with the dosage instructions. She looked at me. The handwriting was very familiar. I instinctively looked away. It had indeed been me, but I thought I disguised it well, using a print font. How did you know it was me? Because you were the first one in the classroom that morning, she said softly. And you couldn't look me in the eye. I rubbed my nose, feeling my cheeks burn. So she'd known all along. And that other time in gym class, I twisted my ankle and you carried me to the nurse's office. That was Michael. I tried to argue. You smelled faintly of mint, she interrupted. I remember. I was completely speechless. Turns out, while I was secretly paying attention to her, she was silently watching me too. So, Ethan, she took a step forward, closing the distance between us. Do you understand now? I looked at her face, so close to mine, and smelled the faint gardenia scent of her perfume. It was my favorite scent. Understand what? I asked dumbly. She sighed, her eyes filled with exasperation and affection. Mr. Harrison was right. You really are dense as a brick. Then she did something that made my brain completely short-circuit. She stood on her tiptoes and lightly kissed my cheek. The soft touch was fleeting, but it set my skin ablaze. Get it now? She asked, her face slightly flushed. I nodded blankly, then shook my head. She giggled, a sound as melodious as wind chimes. I'll be waiting for you at ECU. With that, she turned and left the balcony. I stood there alone. It took me a long time to snap out of it. My fingers gently touched the spot she'd kissed, which was still burning. Laughter from my classmates echoed from the room. And there I was on that summer night balcony, experiencing a silent revolution. My heart had been completely conquered by a girl named Avery Frost. When I got back to the room, I saw Avery chatting with some other girls. Her eyes met mine, then casually drifted away, as if nothing had happened on the balcony. But I knew everything was different now. It was late when the party finally ended. We all said our goodbyes, promising to see each other in college. I stood at the restaurant entrance, wondering if I should offer to walk Avery home. Ethan, she called my name. Could you walk me home? It's late, and I'm a little nervous walking alone. A few remaining classmates chuckled suggestively. I tried to act calm and nodded. The summer night streets were quiet. We walked side by side, the street lights stretching and shrinking our shadows. When did you start liking me? I finally mustered the courage to ask. Avery was silent for a moment. Maybe the day you made fun of my handwriting, said it looked like chicken scratch. I looked at her in surprise. That day, weren't you mad? I was mad, she smiled faintly. But then I thought about it. You're the first person who dared to say that to me. She paused, then continued. Everyone else tried to butter me up because of my looks or my grades. Only you always treated me like a regular person. I thought back to high school. It was true. I'd never treated her any differently just because she was the prom queen. In fact, I often went head-to-head with her. So that's why you fell for me. I still found it hard to believe. It wasn't a sudden thing, she said softly. It grew slowly. We reached her apartment building. She turned to face me. I'm here. I nodded, unsure what to say. Ethan, she whispered my name. At ECU, are you going to pursue me? I looked into her expectant eyes, my heart racing. Yes, I heard myself say. I'll formally pursue you. A radiant smile bloomed on her face, more beautiful than the starry sky. Then I'll wait for you. She turned to go into the building, then suddenly looked back. Remember, you can only be mine. With that, she quickly disappeared into the stairwell. I stood there, savoring her last words. Bossy, but it made my heart flutter. On my way home, I checked my admissions results. Sure enough, just as she'd said, I was accepted into ECU's computer science program. Looking at the information on my phone screen, I couldn't help but smile. High school was over, but my story with Avery Frost was just beginning. That summer felt extra long and sweet. I looked forward to college life every day, looking forward to seeing her again, looking forward to keeping my promise, to formally pursue her. And what I didn't know was that at ECU, not only were we waiting for each other, but also for an unexpected love triangle. But that was all still to come. Right now, I was just a boy in love, carrying a sweet secret. In September, the maple leaves at the ECU campus were just starting to turn yellow. I stood at the main gate, dragging my suitcase, and took a deep breath. College life, here we go. Ethan, a familiar voice came from behind me. I turned and saw Avery standing a short distance away. She was wearing a simple white dress, yet she still shimmered in the crowd. Several guys passing by kept turning to look at her, but her gaze was fixed only on me. What a coincidence, I said, walking toward her, trying to keep my composure. She smiled faintly. Not really. I was waiting for you. My heart skipped a beat. How did you know I'd be here at this time? You posted on Instagram last night, remember? She raised an eyebrow. Said you'd be on campus at 9 this morning. I remembered then. I had posted a story last night with a picture of my packed suitcase and the caption, "See you at ECU tomorrow at 9. Turns out, she'd been following me. Come on, I'll take you to check in. She naturally took a small bag from my hand. We walked side by side through campus, attracting a lot of glances. Is that Avery Frost? The freshman queen nominee this year. Who's that guy next to her? Her boyfriend. Whispers reached us constantly. I looked at Avery. She seemed completely unfazed. What are you looking at? She noticed my gaze. You, I answered honestly. You look beautiful today. Her earlobes turned slightly red, but she feigned composure. Mister, Harrison would be surprised to hear you talk like that. Mentioning our high school English teacher made us both laugh. That time as rivals now felt like a sweet memory. The check-in process was smooth. Coincidentally, Avery's dorm building was right next to mine. I was in building 3, she was in building 4. Dinner tonight? I bravely asked when I walked her to her dorm building. She nodded. Okay, I'll come find you at 6. Watching her walk into the dorm, I felt like I was floating. I had 3 roommates. Noah, the laid-back guy from the South. Liam, the brainy type with glasses. And Ryan, the quiet type. After quick introductions, I started unpacking. That girl who walked you here, that was Avery Frost, right? Noah leaned in, a gossipy look on his face. I nodded. Nice, dude. You already know, such a pretty girl on the first day. I just smiled, not explaining our relationship. After all, I hadn't quite figured it out myself. In the afternoon, I wandered around campus, getting familiar with the surroundings. ECU was beautiful, with old architecture mixed with modern academic buildings. As I passed the basketball court, a ball suddenly flew toward me. I instinctively caught it and smoothly sank a three-pointer. The ball swished through the net. "Nice shot," the guys on the court whistled. A tall guy walked over to me. "Good moves. What department are you in?" "Computer science, Ethan Miller." "Liam Carter, athletic scholarship student." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Interested in joining the basketball team?" I was about to answer, but my gaze was drawn to a figure in the distance. Avery was standing by the side of the road, talking to a guy. The guy had his back to me, but from Avery's expression, their conversation wasn't going well. "Sorry, I've got something to handle." I nodded to Liam and quickly walked toward Avery. As I got closer, I heard their conversation. "Avery, I really didn't expect to see you here." The guy's voice was excited. "Brandon, please use my full name." Avery's tone was cold. "We're practically family. Why be so formal?" The guy tried to take her hand. Avery stepped back, bumping into me. I naturally put my hand on her shoulder to steady her. "You okay?" I asked softly. She saw it was me, and her tense expression relaxed slightly. She shook her head. The guy, Brandon, eyed me suspiciously. "Who are you?" "Ethan Miller, Avery's friend," I replied calmly. Avery subtly clasped my hand. That small gesture didn't escape Brandon's notice. His face immediately darkened. "Avery, is this why you turned me down?" Avery looked him straight in the eye. "Brandon Hayes, I turned you down because I don't have feelings for you, and it has nothing to do with anyone else." Brandon scoffed. "We'll see about that." Before he turned to leave, he gave me a meaningful look. It was a look of obvious hostility. "Who was that?" I asked Avery. She sighed. "Brandon Hayes. He was 2 years ahead of me in high school. He pursued me, but I've rejected him clearly many times." I squeezed her hand. "If he bothers you again, tell me." She looked up at me, a smile in her eyes. "Are you jealous?" I nodded honestly. "A little." Her smile deepened. We walked side by side through campus, neither of us mentioning Brandon again. But I knew this guy wouldn't give up easily. We had dinner at a small restaurant near campus. Avery ordered a plate of barbecue ribs and naturally put one on my plate. "I remember you like these." I was a little surprised. "How did you know?" "In the high school cafeteria, you always fought for them," she said casually. Turns out, she remembered such tiny details. My heart warmed. "Orientation week drills start tomorrow. Did you get sunscreen?" she asked. I shook my head. "Guys don't use sunscreen." "You'll get burned," she frowned, pulling a bottle of sunscreen from her bag and handing it to me. "Take this." I took the small, elegant bottle and couldn't help but smile. "What's so funny?" "Just remembering how in high school, you wouldn't even lend me an eraser." She glared at me. "You always annoyed me back then. And now?" I asked cautiously. "Now?" She drew out the word. "Sometimes I still want to annoy you, but I can't bring myself to." That sentence made my heart flutter through the entire meal. On the way back to her dorm, we walked slowly. The late summer evening breeze was cool, dispelling the daytime heat. The streetlights stretched our shadows long. "Ethan," she called my name at the dorm building. Thanks for today," she said softly. "For stepping in." I shook my head. "That's what I'm supposed to do." She took a step closer to me. "Remember what I said?" "What did you say?" "You can only be mine." Her eyes were especially bright in the night, filled with an undeniable firmness. I looked at her and suddenly understood something. "That line," I said, "that should be my line." She paused and smiled. "Then say it again." "Avery Frost, you can only be mine." The moment I said those words, I felt something settle and take root in my heart. Her smile bloomed like fireworks on her face. "Okay." A simple word, yet as heavy as a promise. She turned and walked upstairs, her steps light. I stood there for a long time before leaving. That night, I slept soundly. My dreams were full of her smile. Orientation week drills began the next day. The September sun was still scorching. As we stood in formation, I heard a stir from the adjacent group. "Look, that girl is so pretty. Is that Avery Frost, the freshman queen?" I followed their gaze and indeed saw Avery standing in the girls' formation. The uniform, even on her, couldn't hide her elegance. She seemed to feel my gaze and turned to look at me. Our eyes met, then quickly darted away. But that fleeting moment of unspoken understanding made the hot morning sweet. During our break, I was about to get water when a figure blocked my path. It was Brandon Hayes. He was in athletic gear, seeming to have just finished training. Ethan Miller, right? He crossed his arms. I looked you up. Average family, average grades. What makes you think you could be so close to Avery Frost? I looked at him calmly. That doesn't seem to be your business. He scoffed. A girl like Avery isn't someone you're worthy of. Whether I'm worthy or not should be her decision. Brandon's eyes darkened. Stay away from her, or you'll regret it. With that, he turned and left. I tightened my grip on my water bottle, not replying. That kind of threat didn't faze me. But to my surprise, Brandon reappeared after the afternoon drills. This time, he walked directly toward Avery. Avery, let me walk you back to your dorm. The sun's so strong. He opened an umbrella, trying to shield her. Avery stepped back, avoiding his gesture. No thanks, Brandon. Don't be so formal. We're not strangers. Brandon moved closer again, almost touching Avery. I quickly walked over and stepped between them. She said no. Brandon narrowed his eyes. You again? Avery pulled my arm. Let's go. She tried to lead me away, but Brandon blocked us. Ethan, care to make a bet? I looked at him. What's the bet? The freshman basketball tournament. If we win, you stay away from Avery. Before I could answer, Avery spoke first. Brandon, that's enough. I'm on a prize. I gently patted her hand, signaling her to relax. And if you lose? Brandon laughed as if I'd said something ridiculous. How could our athletics program lose? What if you do? He snorted. If we lose, I promise to stop bothering Avery. Deal. Avery looked at me worriedly. Ethan. I gave her a reassuring look. I was confident about basketball. I'd been a varsity starter in high school, though few knew it. Back then, my mind was focused entirely on academics, and I rarely played in games. After Brandon left, Avery softly asked me, You play basketball? A little. Brandon's an athletic scholarship student. Basketball's his strong suit. I held her hand. Trust me. She looked at me, her worry gradually fading, replaced by trust. Okay, I trust you. Orientation week flew by quickly. My relationship with Avery warmed up without us even realizing it. She'd bring me water during breaks. I'd walk her to the library after dismissal. We were like any young couple on campus, enjoying the sweetness of youth. We just lacked a formal title, and I was waiting for the right moment. The basketball game was scheduled for the weekend after orientation week. Word spread quickly. Almost the entire freshman class knew about the game. Athletics program versus computer science. But more people were interested because the game involved Avery Frost, the freshman queen. On game day, the basketball court was packed. As I warmed up, Liam Carter walked over. Feeling the pressure, man? I sank a three-pointer. I'm good. The ball swished through the net. Liam whistled. Nice. Looks like we have a chance today. Avery came to the sidelines, wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, still drawing attention. She gave me a thumbs up. I nodded, returning her smile. Brandon led his athletics team onto the court, full of swagger. He walked up to me and lowered his voice. Still time to concede. I looked at him calmly. Let's play. The referee blew the whistle, and the game began. The athletics team was indeed strong, especially Brandon. He was quick and accurate with his shots. By halftime, we were down by 10 points. During the break, Avery handed me water and a towel. It's okay. Just do your best, she murmured. I looked at her worried eyes and suddenly felt like I couldn't lose. Not for the bet, but because I didn't want to disappoint her. The second half began, and I was like a different person. Drives, shots, assists. Every move was clean and precise. The score gradually evened out. The cheers from the sidelines grew louder and louder. With 30 seconds left, the score was tied. The ball came into my hands. Brandon defended me tightly, giving me no chance to shoot. The seconds ticked by. Everyone in the stadium held their breath. In the final moments, I faked a move, shook off Brandon, jumped, and released the ball. The basketball arced perfectly through the air. The final buzzer sounded. The ball swished through the net. A game-winning three-pointer. After a moment of silence, deafening cheers erupted. My computer science classmates rushed onto the court, surrounding me. Through the gaps in the crowd, I saw Avery standing on the sidelines, tears in her eyes. It was an expression I'd never seen before, full of pride and emotion. Brandon walked over, his face grim. I'll keep my promise. He turned and left, his back stiff. After the crowd gradually dispersed, Avery walked up to me. I never knew you were so good at basketball. I wiped sweat from my brow. There's a lot you don't know. Like how much I liked her. She looked at me, her eyes soft. Ethan, close your eyes. I did as she said. Then, I felt a soft touch on my lips. Light as a feather, but it made my whole body go rigid. It was fleeting. I opened my eyes and saw her flushed face. That's your reward, she whispered, her eyes sparkling. I took her hand. That's not enough. In her surprised gaze, I leaned down and kissed her lips. Unlike the light touch before, this kiss was tender and firm. There were still a few scattered people on the field, and whistles and cheers broke out. But we paid no attention. In that moment, the world was just us. When I released her, her face was redder than the sunset. Now, you're my girlfriend, I announced. She glared at me, but didn't deny it. You can only be mine. I repeated the words from that night. She finally smiled, her eyes full of starlight. You too. We intertwined our fingers and walked off the basketball court. The setting sun cast our shadows long, tangled together, as if they would never separate. College life had just begun, and our story was still going. I knew there would be challenges ahead, like the unwilling Brandon, like the many more people who would pursue Avery. But right now, I held her hand tightly, fearless, because she chose me, and I would never let go. Campus life, after the basketball game, felt like it was soaked in honey. Every morning, Avery would wait for me downstairs from my dorm. She always had 2 breakfasts, one for me, one for herself. Did you pull an all-nighter again? She frowned, noticing the dark circles under my eyes. I took the warm coffee, rushing to finish a coding assignment. She sighed softly, pulling a small bottle of eye drops from her bag. Use these before bed. They help with fatigue. I took the small box, my heart warming. These mornings had become our daily routine. Walking to class, our hands naturally intertwined. Passers-by cast envious glances our way. Is that Ethan Miller from computer science? The guy who won the basketball game against the athletics program. And he's with Avery Frost. What a perfect couple. I'd grown used to these whispers. Avery seemed to enjoy the attention too. Her fingers gently scratched my palm. No class this afternoon. Want to go to the library? I nodded. Sound good. Her smile was especially bright in the morning light. Our professor for the core computer science class was a serious middle-aged man, but he was passionate on the podium. I was diligently taking notes when my phone vibrated. It was a message from Avery. Listen carefully in class. No zoning out. I looked up and saw her sitting in the back row, head down, secretly smiling. She'd chosen this introductory CS course as an elective, saying she wanted to learn about my major. But I knew she just wanted to spend more time with me. I replied, Professor Frost is a strict supervisor. She sent back a triumphant emoji. These small interactions made the dry lecture interesting. After class, she walked up to me. Professor Miller, I didn't quite understand that algorithm. I knew she was teasing. Her math grades had always been excellent. There was no way she couldn't understand this basic concept. But I patiently explained it to her anyway. She stood very close, her hair occasionally brushing my arm. The faint scent of gardenia lingered. Got it. She looked up at me, her eyes sparkling. Thanks, Professor Miller. That nickname made my heart skip a beat. Other students cast knowing glances our way. She, however, nonchalantly began packing her books. As we walked out of the academic building, we ran into Liam Carter. Well, look at you two lovebirds again, he teased. Avery boldly linked her arm through mine. What, jealous? Liam made a mock-injured face. Picking on a single guy, huh? Joking, we walked to the dining hall. Lunchtime was bustling. I told Avery to find a seat while I got food. I knew she liked barbecue ribs and stir-fried broccoli, and a side of soup. When I returned to the table with our trays, her eyes lit up with surprise. You remembered all that? I nodded, sitting across from her. Everything you like, I remember. She looked down at her food, her earlobes slightly red. She was especially cute like that. The library was quiet that afternoon. We sat by the window, sunlight filtering through the blinds, casting dappled patterns on the floor. She was reading finance textbooks, her serious profile captivating. Occasionally, guys would glance her way, but upon seeing me, they'd discreetly look away. Ethan, she suddenly whispered. Hmm. Next weekend is my birthday. I paused. Why didn't you say something sooner? She smiled. Well, I'm telling you now, aren't I? I secretly congratulated myself. I still had a week to prepare. What do you want for a gift? She shook her head. Just your company is enough. But I knew this was her first birthday in college, so it had to be special. By the time the library closed, it was dark. We walked side by side back to our dorms. The streetlights stretched our shadows, intertwining them. Cold. I noticed her rubbing her arms. The early autumn night was already a bit chilly. Before she could answer, I'd already taken off my jacket and draped it over her. It still held my body heat. She snuggled into the collar and said softly, "Thanks." When we reached her dorm building, she didn't go in immediately. "Ethan, what is it?" She stood on her tiptoes and lightly kissed my cheek. "Good night." With that, she turned and ran into the dorm. I stood there, feeling the lingering warmth on my cheek. Nights like these, I never wanted them to end. Back in my dorm, Noah immediately came over. "Day night, huh?" I smiled, not denying it. "Nice, man. You got the prom queen." Liam looked up from his book. "Heard you have a lot of competition." I thought of all the guys who looked at Avery and nodded. "But she's mine." I said it firmly. Even Ryan, the quiet one, spoke up. "Good for you guys." Those 4 simple words made me feel warm. The next day was Saturday, and I woke up early. I needed to pick out a birthday gift for Avery. I spent the whole morning shopping, but couldn't find anything suitable. Either it wasn't good enough for her, or it wasn't special enough. In the afternoon, I passed a boutique. Displayed in the window was an exquisite silver bracelet. Its design was simple, with a small, ice crystal-shaped pendant. It reminded me of her name. I went inside, and the salesperson enthusiastically greeted me. "Looking for a gift for your girlfriend?" I nodded. "Her name's Avery Frost, and she likes simple designs." The salesperson recommended that bracelet. "We can engrave it if you like." I thought for a moment. Engrave and please. My initial, a small, silent declaration of ownership. The salesperson smiled knowingly. "It'll be ready for pickup tomorrow." Walking out of the boutique, I felt a lot more relaxed. This gift, it was perfect for her. On Sunday night, I received a text from Avery. "Would you mind coming with me somewhere tomorrow afternoon?" I replied, "Of course." I didn't ask where because as long as I was with her, anywhere was good. Monday afternoon, she took me to a pottery studio. I've always wanted to try pottery. Her eyes sparkled. We tied on aprons and sat at the pottery wheels. After a brief instruction from the teacher, we started. Clay flowed through my fingers, gradually taking shape. She was making a mug, diligently carving a design onto it. I was also making a mug, but my technique was clumsy and the shape was a bit odd. "It's great for a first try," she comforted me. After 2 hours of busy work, our creations were finally finished. They need a week to fire. Walking out of the studio, she said mysteriously, "This is your gift." I paused. "My gift?" She nodded. "On my birthday, I'm going to give you a special present." Turns out, she was also preparing a surprise for me. This mutual effort filled my heart with tenderness. During our elective class on Wednesday, I noticed Avery seemed a little distracted. After class, I asked her what's wrong. She hesitated. "Brandon contacted me again." My eyes narrowed. "Did he harass you?" She shook her head. "Just sent messages, said he wanted to be friends." "Did you reply?" "No," she took my hand, "but I'm worried he won't give up easily." I gently squeezed her hand. "Leave it to me." She looked at me worriedly. "Don't do anything reckless." I nodded. "I'll be careful." But in my mind, I'd already decided to talk to Brandon. The next day, I waited for Brandon outside the athletics program training facility. He seemed surprised to see me. "Something wrong?" I got straight to the point. "Stay away from Avery." He scoffed. "Why should I?" "Because she's my girlfriend." His eyes darkened. "You two won't last. That's none of your concern." He stared at me for a moment, then suddenly smiled. "You know what? Avery's dad is my dad's business partner." My expression remained unchanged. So our families are a better match," he said triumphantly. "What are you?" I looked at him calmly. "Love isn't a business deal. It's not about matching families." He snorted. "We'll see." With that, he turned and walked into the training facility. I knew this wouldn't be the end of it, but I wasn't afraid. Friday evening, I picked up the custom bracelet. The salesperson had wrapped it beautifully in a small, exquisite box. Imagining her expression when she received the gift, I couldn't help but smile. Saturday morning, I got a call from Avery. It's my birthday today, remember? Her voice was full of anticipation. Of course I remember. I chuckled. I'm all yours for the whole day. We agreed to meet at the campus gate. She was wearing a light blue dress, the color of the sky. What's the plan for today? She linked her arm through mine. I smiled mysteriously. Just follow me. I took her to an amusement park first. Even though it was Saturday, it wasn't too crowded in the morning. We rode the Ferris wheel, and at the very top, she leaned on my shoulder. They say couples who kiss at the top of the Ferris will stay together forever, she whispered, her eyes hopeful. I leaned down and kissed her lips, soft and long. When we got off the Ferris wheel, her face was still flushed. Next were the merry-go-round bumper cars. She laughed like a child, completely shedding her usual reserved demeanor. At noon, I took her to a restaurant I'd booked. The ambience was elegant, with live piano music. The waiter led us to a window seat. Outside, the city skyline was beautiful. When did you arrange all this? She asked, surprised. A week ago, I replied truthfully. Her eyes sparkled with emotion. Halfway through lunch, the pianist suddenly switched to a new song. It was Happy Birthday. The waiter came over, pushing a cake with lit candles. Make a wish, I whispered. She closed her eyes, her long lashes casting shadows on her face. A moment later, she blew out the candles. Applause filled the restaurant. What did you wish for? I asked. She winked playfully. Can't tell you, or it won't come true. But I could guess from her eyes that the wish was about me. After lunch, I presented the gift I'd prepared. She carefully unwrapped it. Her eyes lit up when she saw the bracelet. Help me put it on. She extended her wrist. I carefully fastened the bracelet for her. The silver chain made her wrist look even fairer. The ice crystal pendant sparkled in the light. Is there an engraving here? She noticed the tiny E. I nodded. My initial. She traced the letter, her eyes gentle. I love it. Then she also took out a box. Your birthday gift. I opened the box. Inside was the mug she'd made at the pottery studio. Our initials and a small heart were carved into the mug. That way, every time you drink water, you'll think of me, she said with a smile. I gripped the mug, feeling my heart fill with warmth. In the afternoon, we went to see a movie. A romance with a happy ending. In the darkness, she leaned on my shoulder, our hands tightly clasped. After the movie, we strolled down the street. The sun was setting, bathing the city in a golden glow. This is the happiest birthday I've ever had, she said softly. I stopped and looked at her seriously. I'll spend every birthday with you from now on. Her eyes welled up. Promise? I nodded. Promise. She threw her arms around me, hugging me tightly. Ethan, I love you. This was the first time she'd said those 3 words. My heart felt like it had been struck, completely overwhelmed with tenderness. I love you too, I whispered back. We embraced in the sunset, oblivious to passers-by. In that moment, the world was only us. When I walked her back to her dorm that night, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed me at the entrance. Good night, my boyfriend. Good night, my girlfriend. Watching her walk into the dorm, I felt like the happiest person in the world. Back in my dorm, Noah immediately came over. The prom queen's birthday today? How was it? I smiled. It was perfect. Liam pushed up his glasses. Sounds like a sweet date. Even Ryan cast a curious glance. I took out the mug and carefully placed it on my desk. A token of your love. Huh. Noah teased. I didn't deny it and started organizing today's photos. In every picture, Avery's smile was radiant. I chose a picture of us together and set it as my phone wallpaper. Just then, my phone chimed. It was a message from Avery. Thanks for today, I had so much fun. Attached was a picture of her wearing the bracelet. The silver chain sparkled on her wrist. It suits you perfectly, I replied, because you gave it to me. Simple as the conversation was, it made the corners of my mouth turn up unconsciously. Lying in bed, I replayed every detail of the day. Her smil, her hook, her kiss. In those 3 words, I love you. I knew I was completely lost. This girl, named Avery Frost, had firmly captured my entire heart, and I was more than willing to give her all my love. The weekend passed quickly, and on Monday morning, I waited for her downstairs from her dorm as usual. She was wearing the bracelet, walking toward me in the morning light. Good morning, she said, naturally taking my arm. Good morning. We smiled at each other and walked towards the academic building. On the way, she said softly, "My parents are coming to visit this weekend." I paused. "Do you need me to make myself scarce?" She shook her head. "I want to introduce you to them." That sentence made me both nervous and excited. Meeting her parents meant our relationship was moving to the next level. But I also worried if they would accept me. After all, Brandon had said their families had business dealings. "Don't worry," she seemed to read my thoughts. "My parents are very open-minded." I squeezed her hand. "Okay." Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Our shadows clung together, as if they would never separate. I knew there might be challenges ahead, but as long as she was by my side, I was fearless. The news of Avery's parents coming to visit made me nervous for days. Even in class, I was a little distracted. "Seriously?" Liam Carter asked, patting my shoulder on the basketball court. "It's just meeting the parents." I sank a three-pointer. "You're not in love? You wouldn't understand." The ball swished through the net. Liam whistled. "Who says I don't understand? Just haven't found the right one." During a break, I sat on the sidelines wiping sweat. Avery texted me. "Tomorrow, 3 p.m., campus coffee shop," followed by a cute emoji. I replied, "Okay, anything I need to prepare?" "No, just be yourself." Despite her words, I still got a haircut and bought a new shirt. Friday afternoon, I arrived at the coffee shop half an hour early. I chose a window seat and ordered drinks and pastries. At 2:50, Avery walked in with a middle-aged couple. I immediately stood up. Avery, wearing an elegant dress, gave me a faint smile. "Mom, Dad, this is Ethan Miller." I politely bowed. "Nice to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Frost." Avery's father was in a suit, with a refined demeanor. Her mother wore an elegant dress, looking graceful and distinguished. Both studied me, their gazes gentle but discerning. "Avery has mentioned you." "Mr. Frost said first. Good basketball player." I smiled modestly. "Just a hobby, sir." After we sat down, the atmosphere was a little subtle. "Mrs. Frost thoughtfully noticed that I'd ordered all of Avery's favorite things. You know Avery's preferences very well." I glanced at Avery. "Everything she likes, I remember." Avery subtly squeezed my hand under the table. This small gesture didn't escape her parents' eyes. "Mr. Frost asked about my major and future plans." I answered honestly, neither exaggerating nor being overly humble. When the topic of my family background came up, I noticed a slight change in Mrs. Frost's expression. "I hear your parents are both in regular working professions." I nodded. "Yes, but they're very supportive of my education." Mr. Frost nodded. "What matters is personal capability." The conversation went smoothly. Avery occasionally added a few remarks, her tone tinged with pride. "Ethan is very accomplished. His major grades are always excellent. He takes great care of me. He's very attentive." Listening to her praise, I felt a little embarrassed. Halfway through our coffee, Mr. Frost suddenly asked, "What are your plans for the future?" I thought carefully before replying. "I want to work in computer science, currently studying AI. After graduation, I hope to join a tech company or start my own business." Mrs. Frost interjected, "Have you considered studying abroad for grad school?" I glanced at Avery. "Not at the moment. I didn't want to be too far from her." Mr. Frost seemed satisfied with my answer. "It's good for young people to have their own plans." As they were leaving, Mrs. Frost quietly said to me, "Avery has been pampered since childhood. Please be patient with her." I solemnly promised, "I'll take good care of her." Avery walked her parents to the parking lot, and I stayed to pay the bill. The server told me Mr. Frost had already settled it. Back in my dorm, Avery texted me, "My parents had a really good impression of you." I breathed a sigh of relief. "Really?" "Yeah. Dad said you're reliable, and Mom said you're attentive." Looking at the words on the screen, I couldn't help but smile. Looks like I'd passed that test. That weekend, we went to pick up our pottery creations. After firing, the mugs had a warm, off-white color. My mug was still a bit oddly shaped, but it had its own charm. Hers was exquisite, with tiny snowflake patterns carved into it. "Why snowflakes?" I asked. She smiled. "Because my name, Avery Frost, has frost in it." We exchanged mugs, as if completing a ritual. "You have to use this mug every day to drink water," she insisted. I nodded. "Okay." On Monday's computer science class, the professor announced a project competition. Winners would get an internship opportunity at a well-known tech company. I immediately signed up. Avery was very supportive when she found out. You can definitely do it. For this project, I started spending all my time in the library and lab. My time with Avery decreased, but she never complained. Instead, she often brought me late-night snacks. Don't overdo it, she always warned. Sometimes I'd pull an all-nighter in the lab, and she'd bring me hot breakfast first thing in the morning. Another all-nighter. She frowned, her eyes full of concern. I took the breakfast and lightly kissed her forehead. It'll be over soon. As the project entered a critical phase, I practically lived in the lab. One evening, Avery came to bring me late-night food and met another student also working on a project. Sarah Chun, the computer science department's prettiest girl. She happened to be working on the same competition project. Ethan, I can't seem to get this algorithm to work. Could you take a look? Sarah came over with her laptop, naturally getting close to me. I noticed Avery's expression stiffen slightly. Sorry, I'm a bit busy right now. I politely declined. Sarah then noticed Avery. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I interrupting? After she left, Avery softly asked, Does she often ask you for help? I shook my head. First time. It was true. But Avery's eyes still held a hint of doubt. I took her hand. You're the only one in my heart. She finally smiled. I know, but the incident was like a thorn buried in her mind. The day before the project submission, I pulled an all-nighter debugging the program. In the early morning, I finally completed all the work. I immediately messaged Avery. Project finished. I'll spend the whole day with you today. She quickly replied, I'm downstairs from your lab. I ran downstairs in surprise and saw her standing in the morning light, holding breakfast. Figured you pulled an all-nighter, she said with a smile. I hugged her, touched. Thank you. That day, we spent the entire day together, as if to make up for the past few days of separation. In the afternoon at the library, we ran into Sarah Chun. She saw us, and her eyes flickered. Ethan, did you submit your project? I nodded. Just did. What a coincidence. So did I. She smiled, then looked at Avery. You two are so sweet together. Avery replied calmly. We are. After Sarah left, Avery said softly, She likes you. I paused. How could she? A woman's intuition. She leaned on my shoulder. But I trust you. I kissed her hair. You can always trust me. The project results were announced a week later. I won first prize. Sarah got second. At the awards ceremony, Sarah and I went up on stage together. In the audience, Avery smiled and applauded for me. But when I came down, I noticed her smile was a little strained. What's wrong? I asked softly. She shook her head. Nothing. Later, I found out that when Sarah had whispered congratulations to me on stage, she'd leaned in a little too close. Avery had seen this from the audience. That night, during our celebration, Avery had a bit too much to drink. As I walked her back to her dorm, she leaned on my shoulder. Ethan, will you always like me? I looked at her seriously. Of course. She stopped, her eyes hazy. But so many people like you. I cupped her face. But I only like you. She looked at me and suddenly cried. I'm sorry, I shouldn't doubt you. I gently wiped away her tears. Silly girl, you're cute when you're jealous. She broke into a smile. Really? I nodded and kissed her forehead. Really, because it means you care about me. She hugged me tightly. I really do care about you. In that moment, I felt our hearts draw even closer. Back in my dorm, I received a message from Sarah Chun. Congratulations on the award. Could I pick your brain about your project approach? I glanced at the time. It was already 11 at night. Sorry, it's not a good time. We can discuss it in class tomorrow. After replying, I turned off my phone. Some boundaries needed to be clear. The next day, I told Avery about it. She seemed a little surprised. Why tell me? I don't want to hide anything from you. She held my hand, touched. Thank you for trusting me. From that day on, she trusted me even more. Even if other girls asked me for help with problems, she wouldn't overthink it, because she knew my heart was only hers. Time flew by, and soon it was the end of the semester. Avery and I often studied together. She excelled at math, and I excelled at programming. We helped each other and improved together. After our last exam, we planned a trip. It had been planned for a while to celebrate the end of the semester. Our destination was a coastal town with a warm climate. We stayed at a boutique hotel by the sea. We could see the ocean from our window. On the first night, we sat on a beach, watching the stars. The sound of waves crashed gently, The sea breeze was soft. I really wish time could stop right now, she whispered, leaning on my shoulder. I held her tighter. We'll come often in the future. She looked up at me, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Ethan, meeting you is my greatest fortune. I leaned down and kissed her. Mine too. We kissed under the starry sky, the waves serenading us. In that moment, I made a wish to be with her forever. After the trip, we each went home for winter break. The days apart were especially hard. We video called every day, sharing every little detail of our lives. Sometimes we just quietly watch each other, and it felt like bliss. On New Year's Day, I received a photo from her. She was wearing a red sweater, her smile as radiant as a flower. Missing you, she said. I looked at the photo, my heart melting. Missing you too. When winter break ended and we returned to school, I waited at the station early. As she walked out of the platform, dragging her suitcase, I quickly went up and hugged her. Welcome back. She giggled in my arms. I'm back. In the new semester, our lives became even sweeter. It was as if the separation made us cherish our time together even more. One day in March, Avery received a call from home. After hanging up, her face was pale. What's wrong? I asked, concerned. She hesitated. Brandon's parents came to my house to propose marriage. My heart sank. And then, my parents turned them down. She took my hand. But what? She sighed. They want me to study abroad for grad school after graduation. I was silent for a moment. What do you think? She looked me straight in the eye. I don't want to leave you. I hugged her, touched. We can figure this out together. That night, I couldn't sleep. The reality of the situation was laid bare. I couldn't avoid it. The next day, I started looking up information about studying abroad. If she was going, I was willing to follow. When I told Avery this idea, she was very moved. You don't have to change your plans for me. I shook my head. You're part of my plans. She threw her arms around me. Ethan, I love you. I love you too. Sunlight streamed over us through the window, warm and bright. I knew there might be challenges ahead, but as long as we faced them together, there was nothing to fear, because love gives us courage. That weekend, we went hiking. The view from the top of the mountain was beautiful. The entire city was spread out before us. She leaned on my shoulder and whispered, no matter what the future holds, I want to be with you. I took her hand. It's a promise. We made our vow at the mountaintop, with heaven and earth as our witnesses. Coming down the mountain, our hands are tightly clasped, just like our hearts, tightly connected. Back at school, we started planning for the future. She applied for grad schools abroad, and I prepared for the relevant exams. Though it was tough, everything felt meaningful because we supported each other. Sometimes, after studying late, we'd go for a late-night snack. In our familiar little spot, we'd share a steaming bowl of comfort soup. When we study abroad, I'll miss this taste, she said. I smiled. Then I'll learn how to make it for you. Her eyes lit up. Really? I nodded. As long as you like it. She leaned happily on my shoulder. You're so good to me. These nights were simple yet warm. I knew that no matter where we were in the future, as long as we were together, that was home. And our love would cross mountains and oceans, lasting forever. Like the starlight that night, eternal and radiant. In the spring, cherry blossoms bloomed and fell on campus. Avery and I walked side by side on a path strewn with petals, her hand gently linked through my arm. All your application materials are ready? I asked her, looking down. She nodded, but her gaze was a little unfocused. I mailed them yesterday. I knew what she was worried about. Studying abroad meant we'd face separation, even if it was just temporary. Don't overthink it. I squeezed her hand. No matter the outcome, we'll be together. She leaned on my shoulder and whispered, sometimes I wonder if I'm being too selfish, making you change your plans for me. I stopped and looked her seriously in the eyes. Being with you is never a sacrifice. It's my greatest blessing. Her eyes were slightly red-rimmed, especially captivating amidst the pink shower of cherry blossoms. I gently kissed away the tears at the corners of her eyes. Come on, I'll take you somewhere. I led her to a small shop behind school. The storefront was small, but warmly decorated. This is the shop I leased, I said with a smile, pushing open the glass door. I want to open a coffee shop. She widened her eyes in surprise. When did this happen? A month ago. I led her into the still under renovation shop. I thought about it. If you go abroad, I'll stay here and start this business. When you come back, this will be our home. Her tears finally fell. You big dummy. I wiped away her tears. I told you, I'd always be with you. She looked around at the nascent coffee shop. The walls were a warm cream color, and a few tables and chairs were already in place. Why a coffee shop? Because you like it, I said softly. I remember you saying a long time ago that your dream was to open a small coffee shop, to smell the coffee every day and watch people come and go. She froze. That was just something I said casually. Every word you say, I remember. She threw her arms around me, hugging me tightly. Ethan, I don't want to leave you. I stroked her long hair. Then come back soon. We embraced in the not yet open coffee shop, sunlight streaming through the glass windows, casting dappled patterns on the floor. This spring, with a shared dream, felt especially warm. In the following days, we balanced our studies with renovating the coffee shop. Avery had great ideas for the decor and personally selected all the ornaments. We need a piano here, she said, pointing to a corner. We can have someone play on weekends. I nodded, making a mental note. Good idea. And our photos should hang on the wall, she continued. From high school to college. I smiled and pinched her cheek. Already reminiscing? She winked playfully. Just want to remind you constantly that I'm your first love. We smiled at each other. By the end of April, the coffee shop was finally renovated. We named it Frosty Brew, inspired by her name. On opening day, we only invited close friends. Liam Carter came with his basketball buddies. Noah, Liam, and Ryan also came to show support. Avery's best friend surrounded her, full of admiration. This is so romantic, one girl exclaimed. Opening a coffee shop for your girlfriend. Avery smiled at me, her eyes full of happiness. I personally brewed coffee for everyone, and Avery handled serving. The small coffee shop was filled with laughter. This is our new hangout spot, Liam announced, raising his cup. Everyone laughed and agreed. After closing for the night, Avery and I stayed behind to clean up. She meticulously wiped every table, her movements gentle. I hugged her from behind. Tired? She shook her head, leaning into my embrace. Today was the happiest day. I kissed the top of her head. Every day will be this happy from now on. She turned to face me, her eyes tender. Ethan, there's something I want to tell you. I looked at her serious expression, my heart tightening slightly. I've decided not to go abroad. I froze. What? She smiled, repeating, I'm not going abroad. I applied for the master's program at this university. Why? Wasn't that the school you always wanted to go to? She gently caressed my face. But there's someone here I'd miss even more. I took her hand. You don't have to. This is my own decision, she interrupted. Love shouldn't be a sacrifice, but shared growth. I want to run this coffee shop with you, finish our degrees together, and create our future together. I was too moved to speak, only able to hold her tightly. Outside, the moonlight was perfect, and the scent of coffee filled the air. In this little world that belonged to us, I felt an unprecedented happiness. In early May, Avery's birthday was approaching. It was her 20th birthday, and I wanted to give her a special surprise. I secretly contacted her parents and friends, planning a birthday party at the coffee shop. On her birthday, I used the excuse of needing to buy supplies and asked her to come to the coffee shop that evening to help. When she opened the door, confetti exploded above her head. Happy birthday! Friends poured out from every corner, and the coffee shop was decorated with streamers and balloons. She gasped in surprise, covering her mouth, her eyes welling up. You guys! Mrs. Frost stepped forward and hugged her daughter. Silly girl, happy birthday. Mister. Frost clapped me on the shoulder. Nice setup. I smiled modestly. Everyone helped. The party was lively that night. Friends presented their carefully chosen gifts. When it was my turn, I took out a small box. Happy birthday, my girl. She carefully opened the box. Inside was a key. This is the coffee shop key, I said softly. From today on, it's yours. She froze, and tears finally fell. This is too much. I wiped away her tears. You're my most precious treasure. Friends cheered, and the air was filled with laughter. After the party, we sat side by the coffee shop window. The night was deep, and the streetlights were warm. Why are you so good to me? She asked, leaning on my shoulder. I held her close. Because you're worth it. She looked up at me, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Ethan, let's be together forever, okay?" I kissed her forehead. "Okay, forever." In that moment, I felt like I saw our future, growing old together in this little coffee shop filled with the scent of coffee. June arrived, and the pressure of final exams grew. We reduced the coffee shop's operating hours to focus on studying. Sometimes, after closing, we'd stay in the shop and study late into the night. She'd read finance case studies, and I'd write code. Occasionally, we'd look up, smile at each other, and return to our work. This tacit companionship made even tedious studying sweet. One night, we studied very late. She fell asleep at the table, her lashes casting faint shadows under her eyes. I gently draped my jacket over her and continued with my assignment. When she woke up, I'd already prepared a late-night snack. "How long was I asleep?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "Not long." I pushed hot milk toward her. "Drink this, and I'll walk you back to your dorm." She drank the milk and suddenly said, "Sometimes I get scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared of being too happy, that it'll attract bad luck." I took her hand. "Then let's stay happy forever, until even fate gets jealous." She smiled, her eyes shining with warmth. The final exams ended, and we planned a trip. This time it was to the mountains to get away from the city noise. Our rental cabin was halfway up the mountain. We could see a sea of clouds from our window. In the morning, we sat on the terrace watching the sunrise. The sun slowly emerged from the clouds, painting the sky golden. "It's beautiful," she murmured. I looked at her profile. "Not as beautiful as you." She turned to look at me, her cheeks slightly flushed. "When did you get so smooth?" I smiled. "Since I met you." She snuggled into my arms, and we watched the sun fully rise together. Days in the mountains were leisurely. We hiked, picked tea leaves, and fished by the stream. In the evenings, we barbecued in the yard and watched the stars. One day while hiking, it suddenly started to rain. We took shelter in a cave. She shivered slightly from the cold. I took off my jacket and draped it over her. "We'll head back when the rain slows down." She leaned into my arms, listening to the rain outside the cave. "Ethan, do you remember our high school days?" I nodded. "Edo, you always got first place, and I had to study hard to try and beat you." She chuckled. "Well, did you know that sometimes I deliberately scored lower to give you a chance to win?" I looked at her in surprise. "Really?" "Yeah." Her eyes were tender. "Seeing you happy made me happy too." Only then did I realize that she had cared about me so early on. The rain gradually slowed, and we walked hand in hand back to the cabin. The setting sun pierced through the clouds, casting brilliant light and shadow across the mountains. Her hair was wet from the rain, sparkling with tiny golden specks in the sunset. So beautiful, I couldn't look away. "What are you looking at?" She noticed my gaze. "You," I answered honestly. "I can never get enough of looking at you." She laughed and ran off, and I chased after her. Our laughter echoed through the valley, startling a flock of birds. After our trip, we dove into managing the coffee shop for the summer. Business was better than usual because of the holidays. We hired a part-timer to help, but we were still swamped. One afternoon, Brandon Hayes suddenly walked in. He was alone, ordered coffee, and sat in a corner. Avery seemed a little nervous, and I gently squeezed her hand. "I'll go talk to him." I walked to Brandon's table. "Anything else you need?" He looked up at me, his eyes complex. "I just wanted to see for myself." He looked around. "Looks like you two are doing well." I nodded. "We are." He was silent for a moment. "I am studying abroad." I was a little surprised. "Congratulations." He gave a bitter laugh. "No need to be fake. I admit I lost." He looked at Avery, busy behind the counter. "Treat her well." I solemnly promised. "I will." He stood up, left money for the coffee, and turned to leave. At the door, he paused. "Actually, I knew all along her heart was only yours." With that, he pushed the door open and left. I stood there, looking at his untouched coffee, deep in thought. That night, after closing, I told Avery about it. She was silent for a while. "I hope he finds his own happiness." I hugged her. "Everyone will." The summer night breeze was warm, rustling the coffee shop's wind chimes. Ding ding dong, like a happy song. One day in August, Avery received a call from her grad school advisor. After hanging up, she excitedly hugged me. My advisor invited me to participate in an important project. I was happy for her. "That's great." Her eyes sparkled. "If the project is successful, I might even get direct admission to the PhD program. I kissed her forehead. My girl is amazing. She leaned into my arms. Will you support me? Of course, I said softly. I'll always support you in pursuing your dreams. She looked up at me, touched. Then what about your dream? I smiled. My dream is you. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Ethan. I leaned down and kissed her, melting all unspoken words into that kiss. Outside, the moonlight was perfect, just like the night we met. Time flowed. Love was eternal. We knew the road ahead was still long. But as long as we had each other, every day would be a sweet journey. Just like this little coffee shop, filled not just with the scent of coffee, but with all our love. In September, the new semester began, and a fresh batch of freshmen arrived on campus. Avery officially became a graduate student, and she was much busier. Our coffee shop became her second studio. She often sat in a corner with a pile of papers, her slight frown making her look extra cute. Need help? I handed her a hot latte. She looked up, rubbing her temples. These data models are so complicated. You sat beside her. Let me see. As a computer science student, data processing was my strong suit. We worked together late into the night and finally solved the problem. She happily hugged me. What would I do without you? I gently kissed the top of her head. Then never leave me. She chuckled in my arms. Dream on. Nights like these were simple yet warm. In early October, Avery's advisor organized an academic conference. As a project member, she needed to attend. I'll be gone for 3 days, she said, packing her suitcase, a little reluctant. I hugged her from behind. I'll miss you. She turned and leaned against my chest. We have to video call every day. I nodded. Every minute if you want. The day I took her to the airport, it was drizzling. Take care of yourself, I reminded her. She stood on tiptoes and lightly kissed my lips. You too. Watching her walk through security, I felt an emptiness inside. Back at the coffee shop, everything was as usual. But without her, it felt especially quiet. The next evening, I was organizing inventory when the wind chime rang. Welcome. I looked up and froze. Sarah Chun stood at the door, wearing a light yellow dress. I heard Avery's out of town for a conference, she said with a smile, walking closer. I nodded. Can I help you? She handed me a USB drive. This is the complete code from our last competition. Professor said I could share it with you for reference. I took the USB drive. Thanks. She, however, didn't seem to have any intention of leaving. Can I get mocha? I turned to make the coffee, feeling her gaze follow me. You and Avery are so sweet together, she suddenly said. I didn't turn around. Yeah, it's really enviable. I placed the coffee on the counter. Here's your mocha. She took the coffee, her fingers brushing mine. I quickly pulled my hand back. Ethan, she started, then hesitated. It's getting late. I glanced at the clock on the wall. We're about to close. She paused, then smiled. Okay, I'll go then. After she left, I let out a long breath. I sent a video call invitation to Avery, and she quickly answered. Missing me, she was in her pajamas, the hotel room in the background. Yeah, I admitted honestly. Sarah just came by. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, I told her what happened. She chuckled. Are you jealous? I shook my head. I was worried you'd be jealous. Her eyes softened. I trust you. Those 3 simple words warmed my heart. The third afternoon, I arrived early at the airport to pick her up. The flight was delayed, and I waited patiently at the gate. Finally, a familiar figure appeared in sight. Avery was dragging her suitcase, talking to a fellow graduate student. The way he looked at her made me uncomfortable. I quickly walked over. Ethan. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, and she ran to hug me. I held her tight. Welcome back. The other student, Zachary Reed, followed, looking me over. And who is this? Avery linked her arm through mine. This is my boyfriend, Ethan Miller. I nodded to him. His eyes darkened. So, you're Ethan Miller. In a car on the way back, Avery leaned on my shoulder. Tired? I asked softly. She shook her head. Just missed you. I took her hand. Me too. Zachary Reed was her advisor's star student. In the following days, he often appeared by Avery's side, discussing projects, doing experiments together, attending academic events. Every time I saw them walking side by side, I felt a little uncomfortable, but I trusted Avery. At the late October University Anniversary Gala, Avery and I attended together. She wore a light purple gown, So beautiful, I couldn't take my eyes off her. Seen enough? She asked playfully. I shook my head. Never enough. The gala was lively, with a segment where couples were randomly selected for an interactive game. When the spotlight hit us, we both froze. Let's welcome this couple to the stage, the host enthusiastically invited. Amidst the cheers, we walked onto the stage. The interactive game was Pictionary. I drew, she guessed, and we coordinated perfectly, easily winning. The prize was a pair of couple bracelets. The host joked during the award presentation, "It seems you two have great chemistry. Are we expecting good news soon?" Avery blushed and looked down. I took the microphone. "We'll definitely invite everyone to the wedding when the time comes." Enthusiastic applause erupted from the audience. After we got off stage, she lightly pinched my arm. "Who said anything about marrying you?" I took her hand. "Who else but you?" She playfully glared at me, but her eyes were full of smiles. Halfway through the gala, Zachary Reed suddenly appeared. "Avery, the advisor is looking for you." Avery looked at me, a little conflicted. "Go on." I released her hand. "I'll wait for you." After she left, Zachary didn't leave. "Something wrong?" I asked. He looked me over. "You two aren't a good match." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Avery is an exceptional talent. Her future is boundless. And you?" He paused. "You just run a coffee shop." I looked at him calmly. "So, you'll only hold her back." I smiled. "That's Avery's choice. It's not for you to judge." His eyes darkened. "I'll prove it to you." With that, he turned and left. I stood there, feeling a little irritated. Not because of his words, but because I worried it might affect Avery. When she returned, I didn't say anything. I just held her hand tightly. In early November, Avery's project reached a critical stage. She practically lived in the lab, and our time together decreased significantly. Sometimes when I went to deliver food, I'd see her and Zachary discussing work together. Even though I knew it was professional, I still felt a little uncomfortable. One evening, I brought late-night food to the lab. Through the glass window, I saw Zachary helping Avery adjust her hair. She instinctively pulled away. I pushed the door open. "Ethan," Avery was a little surprised. I placed the food on the table. "Just bringing you something to eat." Zachary stood up. "I'll get going then." After he left, only the two of us remained in the lab. "Rest if you're tired," I said softly. She leaned on my shoulder. "This project is too important. I can't slack off." I stroked her long hair. "Don't push yourself too hard." She suddenly looked up at me. "You seem a little unhappy lately." I hesitated, then told her about Zachary's words. After she heard them, her eyes turned cold. "He's going too far." I held her hand. "I don't care what he says. I only care about what you think." She looked at me seriously. "Ethan, you've never held me back. You're my motivation." I was touched and kissed her forehead. The next day, Avery went directly to her advisor and requested a change of project partner. Although the advisor was puzzled, he respected her decision. Zachary found out and came to confront me. "How dare you make Avery do that?" I looked at him calmly. "That was her decision." He scoffed. "If it wasn't for you stirring things up." "Enough." Avery suddenly appeared. "Zachary, this is my decision. Please respect me and my boyfriend." Zachary's face turned ashen, and he turned to leave. Avery held my hand. "From now on, tell me everything." I nodded. "You too." We smiled at each other, and all misunderstandings vanished. In mid-November, the coffee shop celebrated its first anniversary. We prepared a small celebration. Avery personally designed a new menu and decorations. On the anniversary day, many old friends came. Liam Carter came with his new girlfriend, Olivia. Noah and Liam also came. Even Ryan, who rarely participated in social events, showed up with his girlfriend. Business is booming. Liam looked around. "Considering opening a second location?" I smiled and shook my head. "One is enough." Avery greeted guests nearby, her smile bright. Watching her busy figure, I felt incredibly content. That evening, after seeing off all the guests, we sat by the window, resting. "It's been a year," she said softly. I held her hand. "And many more years to come." She leaned on my shoulder. "Sometimes it feels like a dream." I leaned down and kissed her. "Is it a good dream?" She smiled. "The best dream." Outside, the first snow of the year began to fall. Snowflakes danced under the streetlights, beautiful and ethereal. "It's snowing," she said in surprise. We embraced, watching the snow, time standing still. In early December, Avery's project was successfully completed. Her advisor was very pleased and recommended her to attend an international academic conference. In Paris, she said, holding the invitation, her eyes complex. I took the invitation and looked at it. Go, it's a great opportunity. She hesitated. But, no buts, interrupta. I'll go with you. She widened her eyes in surprise. Really? I nodded. Consider it an early honeymoon. She blushed and playfully hit me. Who said anything about a honeymoon with you? I laughed and dodged. Who else but you? Before we left, we were busy preparing visas and itineraries. Though hectic, it was full of anticipation. This was our first international trip together. On the plane, she leaned on my shoulder and slept. I looked out at the sea of clouds, my heart full of happiness. During our few days in Paris, we both worked and played. Avery's presentation was very successful and earned her much praise. After the conference, we stayed a few extra days. We strolled along the Seine, kissed under the Eiffel Tower. We walked hand in hand through the Louvre and shared coffee on the Champs-Élysées. Every moment was precious. The night before we returned home, we watched the city lights from our hotel balcony. Paris twinkled like a galaxy. It's beautiful, she murmured. I looked at her profile. Not as beautiful as you. She turned to look at me, her eyes reflecting the city lights. Ethan, thank you. I raised an eyebrow. For what? Thank you for your support, for your companionship. Thank you for loving me. I held her close. Those are the words I should be saying. She leaned into my arms. Then we're even. I leaned down and kissed her. Never even, because I love you more. She smiled in the moonlight. Then prove it for a lifetime. After we returned home, life returned to normal. But some things were different. Our relationship was deeper, more in sync. On Christmas Day, we held a themed event at the coffee shop. We decorated a Christmas tree and prepared small gifts. Every guest received a special mulled wine. Avery wore a red sweater, looking like a little elf. Merry Christmas. She handed me a beautifully wrapped box. I opened it. Inside was a scarf. I knitted it, she said, a little shy. It might not be perfect. I put on the scarf and took her hand. It's beautiful, I love it. Her eyes sparkled. Really? I nodded and kissed her hand. Really? I also had a gift for her, a necklace with a snowflake pendant. It matches the snowflake bracelet you gave me perfectly, she said, surprised. I helped her put on the necklace. Now everyone will know you're taken. She playfully glared at me, but couldn't hide her smile. That night after closing, we sat under the Christmas tree. Candlelight flickered and soft music played. Make a wish, I said. She closed her eyes, her long lashes casting shadows on her face. After making her wish, she opened her eyes. What did you wish for? She winked playfully. Can't tell you, or it won't come true. But I could guess from her eyes that the wish was about me. Outside, snow was falling. Inside, it was warm as spring. We embraced, listening to Christmas songs. In that moment, time seemed to stand still. All the beauty of the world condensed into this winter night. I knew the road ahead was still long, but as long as she was by my side, every day would be Christmas. As the New Year's countdown struck, Avery and I watched fireworks from the coffee shop's patio. Brilliant lights exploded in the night sky, reflecting in her bright eyes. Another year, she whispered, leaning on my shoulder. I held her tighter. This year will bring even more good things. She looked up at me. Like what? I smiled. Like you saying yes to my proposal. She froze, her cheeks slowly flushing in the fireworks glow. Is it your proposal? I pulled a small box from my pocket. Of course not. A proper proposal has to be more romantic. I opened the box. Inside was an exquisite snowflake-shaped ring. This is an engagement ring, I said softly. When you're ready, we'll get formally married. Her eyes welled up. Ethan, fireworks continuously bloomed overhead, illuminating her moved face. I will. She reached out a slightly trembling hand. I slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. From now on, you're mine. She threw her arms around me. Already was yours. We embraced under the fireworks, welcoming the new year. In mid-January, school let out for winter break. We decided to use this opportunity to renovate the coffee shop's second floor. We can turn it into a guest house, Avery said enthusiastically, drawing design sketches. A cozy place for guests from far away. I looked at her focused profile, my heart warming. This kind of life was my dream. During the renovation, we temporarily lived in the coffee shop, busy during the day, cuddling together at night. Though it was hard work, seeing our little home take shape, every bit of tiredness was worth it. In early February, the renovation was complete. The second floor was divided into 2 cozy rooms and a common living area. Avery carefully placed fresh flowers in each room. "Welcome home." She turned and smiled at me. I hugged her. Home is wherever you are. We invited friends over for a housewarming. Liam Carter came with his girlfriend, Olivia. Noah and Liam also came. "Nice. You even got your wedding house ready," Liam teased. Avery blushed and glared at him. "Don't say that." I put my arm around her shoulder. He's not wrong. Everyone chuckled, and the atmosphere was lively and warm. That evening, after our friends left, we sat on the second-floor balcony, watching the stars. Time flies so fast. Avery leaned on my shoulder. "Soon we'll be graduating." I gently stroked her long hair. "What do you want to do after graduation?" She thought for a moment. "Continue my PhD. Then teach here." "What about you?" "Run the coffee shop well, and develop some related apps." She looked up at me. "We'll always be together, right?" I kissed her forehead. "Of course, we'll be together for life." The stars in the night sky twinkled, as if bearing witness to us. February 14th, Valentine's Day. I closed the coffee shop early and prepared a candlelit dinner. When Avery returned from school, I blindfolded her. "What's with all the secrecy?" I led her to the dining area. "You can look now." She opened her eyes and gasped in surprise, covering her mouth. The room was lit with candles, and the table was set with roses and red wine. "Happy Valentine's Day." I pulled out a chair for her. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "When did you prepare all this?" I smiled. "All day. Actually, I've been planning it for a week." After dinner, I presented the gift I'd prepared. It was a photo album documenting every little moment from when we first met until now. The first picture was our high school graduation photo, standing on opposite sides of the crowd. The last was a candid shot of her busy in the coffee shop just yesterday. She flipped through the album, and tears finally fell. "All these photos. I've cherished every single one," I said softly. "Every picture is precious to me." She threw her arms around me. "I love you, Ethan." I held her tightly. "I love you too, forever." That night, we danced in the candlelight. Without music, only the sound of our heartbeats. Time was gentle, and life was peaceful. In late February, Avery received an invitation for an academic exchange. It was in Beijing for a week. "This time you really have to come with me," she said while packing. "I heard that university's art museum is beautiful." I nodded. "Okay." It would also be a good opportunity to check out coffee shops in Beijing and learn from their experience. On the first day in Beijing, Avery went to attend the conference. I explored the campus alone. Passing the art museum, I was drawn to an exhibition. One painting, in particular, made me stop. It depicted 2 high school students under a cherry tree, the girl's face strikingly similar to Avery's. "Do you like this painting?" A soft female voice sounded behind me. I turned and saw a woman with long hair reaching her waist. She wore a beige trench coat and had an elegant demeanor. "This painting is very unique," I said. She smiled. "I painted it." I was a little surprised. "You are?" "Lily Adams, a graduate student from the art school." She extended her hand. I politely shook it. "Ethan Miller." She glanced at the painting. "The girl in the painting looks a lot like your girlfriend." I then noticed that the boy in the painting also bore a resemblance to me. "Just a coincidence, I guess," I said. She smiled thoughtfully. That evening, when I had dinner with Avery, I mentioned the incident. She raised an eyebrow. "A pretty artist?" I sighed. "That's not the point." She laughed. "Just kidding, but it is quite a coincidence." The next day, Avery accompanied me to the art museum. We happened to run into Lily Adams organizing her artwork. "What a coincidence," she said with a smile, walking over. I introduced them. Avery looked at the painting, her eyes moving slightly. "It really does look like us in high school." Lily's eyes lit up. "Really? Then I'd like to gift this painting to you too." We were both surprised. "That's too generous," Avery said. Lily shook her head. "It's a rare coincidence. Consider it a friendly gesture." Unable to refuse her kindness, we accepted the painting. Leaving the art museum, Avery whispered, "The way she looked at you wasn't quite right." I paused. "Was it?" She nodded. A woman's intuition. I squeeze her hand. You're the only one in my eyes. She finally smiled. Good. You wouldn't dare look at anyone else. We had a great time in Beijing for a few days. Before we left, Lily Adams came to see us off. Do come back to Beijing often. She handed me a business card. Keep in touch. I politely took it, then immediately handed it to Avery. You hold on to this. Avery smiled, satisfied. On the flight back, she leaned on my shoulder. That Lily Adams, she's really talented. I hugged her. But in my heart, you're the most talented. She looked up at me. Really? I nodded. Absolutely. She leaned back on my shoulder. Content. That's better. In early March, the new semester began. Avery's Ph.D. application entered its final stage. She often stayed in the library very late. One evening, when I went to pick her up, I saw Zachary Reed following behind her. Avery, wait up, Zachary called out. Catching up to her, I stopped, standing in the shadows of the trees. Can I help you? Avery's tone was cold. Zachary handed her a file folder. These are the application materials I organized for you. I don't need them. Avery didn't take them. Zachary's eyes dimmed. Do I really annoy you that much? Avery sighed. I don't dislike you, but I have a boyfriend. Please respect that. Zachary was silent for a moment. What if he wasn't around? Avery's eyes hardened. What do you mean? I stepped out of the shadows. He means it's time for him to go. Zachary's face changed when he saw me. Let's go. I took Avery's hand. Even after we'd walked a good distance, I could still feel Zachary's cold gaze. Does he often bother you lately? I asked. Avery nodded. I've clearly rejected him every time. I squeezed her hand. From now on, I'll pick you up every night. She leaned on my shoulder. Okay. In mid-March, a special guest came to the coffee shop. It was Lily Adams. She was pulling a suitcase, looking a bit travel-worn. I'm here to paint in this city, she explained with a smile. Remembered you two were here, so I came to visit. Avery was a little surprised, but still warmly welcomed her. How long do you plan to stay? I asked. About a month. Lily looked around the coffee shop. Do you need any decorative paintings here? I could help. Avery glanced at me. Actually, we were thinking of changing some of the art. So Lily began painting for the coffee shop. She was very talented. Her paintings captured the daily life of the coffee shop. There were scenes of customers drinking coffee, me brewing coffee, and Avery's profile as she read. Could I have this one? She asked, pointing to the painting of Avery. I hesitated. Avery, however, readily agreed. Of course. Lily was delighted and treated us to dinner as a thank you. During the meal, she kept discussing art-related topics with me. Avery quietly ate, occasionally interjecting a few words. After seeing Lily off, Avery whispered, She really likes you. I paused. How could she? I can tell. She leaned on my shoulder. But I trust you. I kissed her forehead, touched. Thank you for trusting me. In early April, Avery received her Ph.D. acceptance letter. We celebrated joyfully. You'll be Dr. Frost now, I teased. She winked playfully. Then you'll have to show me more respect. I put my arm around her waist. I'll show you plenty of respect tonight. She blushed and playfully hit me. You pervert. Laughter echoed in the coffee shop. In mid-April, Lily Adams finished her sketching project. Before she left, she held a small art exhibition and invited us. At the exhibition, one of her paintings caused a stir. It was a profile of me brewing coffee in the coffee shop, my eyes gentle and focused. The title was A Flutter of the Heart. When Avery saw the painting, her expression changed slightly. This painting is not for sale, Lily told those who inquired. It's a private collection. She walked up to me. Ethan, there's something I want to tell you. I glanced at Avery, and she gently nodded. Lily, and I moved to a corner. I'm leaving now, she said. Before I go, I want to tell you how I feel. I looked at her silently. I know you have a girlfriend, but I can't help but like you, she said softly. This painting can be a memento, I replied calmly. Thank you for your kindness, but Avery is the only one in my heart. She gave a bitter smile. I figured. I wish you both happiness. After she left, I returned to Avery's side. Everything clear? She asked. I nodded. Crystal clear. She took my hand. Let's go home. That night, we slept in each other's arms. Moonlight streamed through the curtains, falling on her peacefully sleeping face. I gently stroked the engagement ring on her hand. This girl was the love of my life. No one could ever replace her. In May, spring was in full bloom. We started planning our wedding. Avery put her heart into every detail. From the wedding dress to the invitations, she handled everything herself. "You don't have to work so hard," I said, my heart aching. She smiled. "This is our wedding. It's worth every effort." One afternoon, we were picking locations for our wedding photos. Zachary Reed suddenly visited. He had lost a lot of weight, and his eyes were gloomy. "Congratulations," he said to Avery. Avery politely thanked him. Zachary looked at me. "Can I talk to you privately?" I asked Avery to go upstairs first. "What is it?" Zachary handed me an envelope. "This is my blessing." I opened the envelope. Inside were 2 tickets to Paris. "These are..." "Didn't you two say you wanted to go on a honeymoon?" Zachary managed a smile. "Consider my apology." I was a little surprised. "You don't have to." "Take them," he interrupted. "That way I can finally put it to rest." I hesitated for a moment, then took the tickets. "Thank you." He nodded and turned to leave. Watching him go, I felt a mix of emotions. That evening, I told Avery about it. She was also surprised. "I hope he's truly let go." I hugged her. "As long as we're happy, that's what matters." She leaned into my arms. "Yeah." On May 20th, we took our wedding photos. At the coffee shop, on campus, in every place with memories. The photographer kept praising how good we looked together. "The groom's gaze at the bride is so tender," the photographer said. Avery blushed and looked at me. "Is it?" I nodded. "Because you're so beautiful." She smiled in the sunlight. Exquisitely beautiful. As we were taking the last set of photos, a light rain began to fall. We shared an umbrella and walked in the rain. "Remember the first time we held hands?" she whispered. I smiled. "That was also in the rain." She squeezed my hand. "It feels like a long time ago." I put my arm around her shoulder. "We have a lifetime ahead of us." The wedding photos in the rain were exceptionally romantic, as if the whole world was blessing us. In June, wedding preparations entered the final stage. We sent out invitations, inviting family and friends. When our high school English teacher received the invitation, he specifically called. "I can't believe you two actually ended up together," he said, sounding reflective. "Remember how I said you were dense as a brick?" I smiled, looking at Avery. "She's the one who knocked some sense into me." Avery chuckled beside me. After hanging up, she hugged me. "Good thing you, that brick, finally came to your senses." I kissed her lips. "Good thing you were willing to wait for me to come to my senses." Outside, the moonlight was perfect, just like the night of our first kiss. Time flowed, and love grew deeper. We knew there would still be challenges ahead. But as long as we had each other, every day would be a new happiness. On our wedding day, the sun was shining brightly. Avery, in her pristine white wedding gown, looked like an angel. I waited for her at the end of the aisle, my heart pounding like a drum. When her father placed her hand in mine, I was so moved I almost cried. From this day forward, I will cherish and love her with my life, I solemnly promised. My hands trembled slightly as we exchanged rings. "I love you," Avery whispered, tears in her eyes. "I love you too." I placed a ring on her finger and kissed her hand. Amidst the blessings of family and friends, we made our lifelong vows. After the wedding, we sat on the coffee shop's patio. The night sky was dotted with stars, just like the night we confessed our feelings. "Mr. Miller," Avery leaned on my shoulder. "Mrs. Miller." I put my arm around her waist. We smiled at each other and kissed under the starlight. In that moment, all the waiting was worth it. All the hardships had turned into sweetness. We knew this was just the beginning. The road ahead was still long. But as long as there was love, there was forever. Married life was like being steeped in honey, every day, sickly sweet. Avery had her Ph.D. courses perfectly organized, always finding time to help me run the coffee shop. As the morning sun streamed through the curtains, I'd wake up to see her peaceful, sleeping face. "Good morning, Mrs. Miller." I'd lightly kiss her forehead. She'd murmur sleepily and snuggle into my arms. 5 more minutes. Mornings like these were my greatest happiness. The coffee shop business was booming, so we hired 2 part-timers to help. Avery still liked to personally brew coffee for regulars. She said it added a personal touch. One Sunday afternoon, she was teaching a customer how to do latte art when her face suddenly went pale. "What's wrong?" I quickly supported her. She shook her head. "Maybe I've been too tired lately." I immediately took her to the hospital for a checkup. As we waited for the results, we nervously held hands. "It's probably just a stomach bug," I comforted her. She leaned on my shoulder. "Yeah." The doctor walked out with the report, a smile on her face. "Congratulations, you're 8 weeks pregnant." We both froze. Pregnant." Avery's voice trembled. The doctor nodded. "The baby is healthy." Walking out of the examination room, we were still in shock. Sitting on a bench in the hospital corridor, Avery gently stroked her belly. "We're going to be parents." Tears welled up in her eyes. I held her hand. "Are you scared?" She shook her head. "It's a wonderful surprise." Back home, we sat on the sofa, still feeling like we were dreaming. "Should we tell our parents?" she asked. I smiled and nodded. Of course, we had to share such happy news. Both sets of parents were overjoyed when they heard. Mrs. Frost rushed over that same day, bringing bags of supplements. "You need to be extra careful in the first trimester," she fussed. Avery gave me a helpless look, but her eyes were full of happiness. The pregnancy symptoms were stronger than I expected. Avery often had morning sickness and a poor appetite. I tried various ways to cook for her, but she'd usually eat a few bites and put her fork down. "The baby doesn't like it," she'd say, looking dejected. I'd hug her, my heart aching. "Tell me what you want to eat, and I'll go buy it." Sometimes in the middle of the night, she'd suddenly crave strange things. Strawberries with soy sauce, heated ice cream. No matter how late, I'd fulfill her wishes. Seeing her satisfied smile, all the hard work was worth it. By month 4, her belly was slightly bulging. The morning sickness gradually subsided, and her appetite improved. She started preparing tiny clothes for the baby, each one neatly folded. "Do you think it'll be a boy or a girl?" she asked, leaning into my arms. I gently stroked her belly. "As long as it's our child, I'll love them." She smiled. "Me too." We gave the baby a nickname, Snowy, because we found out she was pregnant on a snowy day. In month 6, we went for a 4D ultrasound. On the screen, the baby's tiny hands and feet were clearly visible. "Look, the baby's sucking its thumb," the doctor said with a smile. Avery tightly gripped my hand, tears in her eyes. "It's amazing." I recorded the video, planning to show it to our baby later, to tell her how hard her mom worked when she was pregnant. The pregnancy flew by. Avery reduced her time at school, spending more time at the coffee shop. Customers were very considerate, often bringing her small gifts. Lily Adams sent a painting depicting her imagined version of a baby. Big eyes, fair skin, just like Avery. "She still remembers us," Avery said softly. I hugged her shoulder. "Everyone who truly wishes us well will remember." By month 8, her mobility started to become difficult. I'd walk with her every day and massage her swollen feet. "I'm getting ugly," she sighed, looking in the mirror. I hugged her from behind. "In my eyes, you're always the most beautiful." She turned and leaned into my arms. Smooth talker, but the corners of her mouth were turned up. A week before her due date, we checked into the hospital. Avery was a little nervous and couldn't sleep all night. I held her hand. "Don't be scared. I'm with you." She nodded. "With you here, I'm not afraid." The contractions started in the early hours of the morning. Watching her pale face, my heart clenched. Deep breaths. I coached her, following what we learned in prenatal class. She gripped my hand tightly, her nails digging into my skin. But I didn't feel the pain. I just hoped she'd suffer less. The labor lasted 10 hours. When the baby's cry rang out, we both cried. "It's a girl." The nurse brought the baby to her. Avery smiled weakly, her eyes full of maternal love. "She looks like you." I kissed her forehead. The baby was tiny, a pink little bundle. We named her Natalie Miller, in remembrance of that snowy day. Her nickname remained Snowy. On the day we were discharged, the sun was bright. We carefully wrapped Snowy and brought her home. The coffee shop's second floor had been converted into a cozy nursery. Mrs. Frost came to help with the postpartum care, making sure Avery was well-fed and plump. Eat more for the breast milk. She'd cook nourishing soups every day. Avery gave me a helpless look, but her eyes were full of happiness. "I'll lose my figure if I eat any more." I smiled and kissed her. "You'll look beautiful no matter what." Snowy was a good baby, rarely crying. She inherited Avery's big eyes, blinking them when she looked at people. Absolutely adorable. I learned how to change diapers, mix formula, burp her. Though clumsy, I enjoyed every moment. On her 1-month birthday, we held a small celebration. Liam Carter came with his girlfriend, Olivia. Noah and Liam also came. Even Zachary Reed had someone deliver a gift, a set of sterling silver baby cutlery. He really seems to have let go, Avery said softly. I nodded. That's for the best. Snowy was passed around by everyone, not crying or fussing. So well behaved, she'll definitely be a little lady, Liam's girlfriend said. Avery smiled. I hope so. That night, after the guests left, we sat by the crib. Snowy was asleep, her tiny mouth slightly open. I can't believe we're parents, Avery said softly. I put my arm around her shoulder. We'll be great parents. She leaned on my shoulder. Yeah. When Snowy was 3 months old, Avery started returning to work. She moved her research into the coffee shop to make it easier to care for the baby. Sometimes while she was doing research, Snowy would sleep in the bassinet next to her. The scene was so heartwarming. One afternoon, Snowy suddenly developed a fever. We rushed her to the hospital. The doctor said it was just a common cold, but we were still incredibly anxious. Avery didn't sleep all night, staying by the crib. You go get some rest, I said, my heart aching. She shook her head. I want to stay with Snowy. We ended up taking turns watching over her until Snowy's fever broke. Only when our baby was back to her lively self did we breathe a sigh of relief. Raising a child is really hard, Avery said, leaning on my shoulder. I gently stroked her long hair. But we're so happy. She nodded. Yes, so happy. When Snowy was 6 months old, her first tooth appeared. She loved to chew on things, gnawing on anything she could get her hands on. Avery's research also made a breakthrough, and she published an important paper. The image of her holding Snowy during an interview made the cover of an academic journal. The most beautiful scholar mom, readers commented. She carefully preserved the magazine, saying she wanted to show it to Snowy when she grew up. Tell the baby mommy's amazing, she said playfully. I kissed both her and the baby. My two treasures are both amazing. When Snowy was 8 months old, she said mama for the first time. Avery was so excited she cried. Say it again, she coaxed the baby. Snowy giggled and clearly said mama again. Ta-da. I looked at my daughter expectantly, but she just smiled, refusing to say it. Avery looked at me triumphantly. Looks like the baby likes me more. I hugged her. I'm jealous. She smiled and kissed me. I'll share some love with you. On Snowy's first birthday, we held a traditional Zhaozhou ceremony, where the baby picks objects to predict their future. The table was covered with various items. Books, a calculator, paintbrushes, a stethoscope. Snowy crawled around, finally grabbing a pen and a book. Just like your mom. Loves to learn, I said with a smile. Avery gently picked up our daughter. I hope Snowy grows up happy. After the birthday party, we took Snowy for a walk in the park. On the swing set, Avery carefully held our baby. The setting sun cast their shadows long. I pulled out my phone to capture this heartwarming moment. Dada. Snowy suddenly reached out to me. I froze. It was the first time she called me Dad. Avery smiled and handed the baby to me. Looks like she loves you more after all. I held my daughter, my heart melting. Dada loves you, I whispered. Snowy giggled, her little hand touching my face. In that moment, I felt like the happiest person in the world. That night, after putting Snowy to sleep, we sat on the patio watching the stars. Time flies so fast. Avery leaned on my shoulder. Snowy's already won. I hugged her. It'll only go faster from now on. She whispered. Sometimes I get scared I won't be able to give Snowy the best. I kissed her hair. As long as we love her, that's the best. She looked up at me. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you for what? Thank you for giving me such a happy life. I held her hand. I should be the one saying thank you. The stars in the night sky twinkled, bearing witness to our happiness. When Snowy was 1.5 years, she started to learn how to walk. Her wobbly steps were adorable. Avery would always follow nervously, afraid she'd fall. Let her try on her own, I'd say with a smile. But every time Snowy was about to tumble, Avery would rush to catch her first. That's just what moms do, she'd say, as if it was the most obvious thing. I'd shake my head helplessly, but my heart felt warm. By the time Snowy was 2, she could speak in full sentences. She inherited Avery's intelligence, learning everything quickly. Mommy's pretty, she'd often say, touching Avery's face. Avery would happily kiss her. Snowy's pretty too. Sometimes she'd run to the coffee shop to help, acting like a little adult. Customers loved her, and often brought her candy. "Can't eat too much candy," Avery would always tell her. But secretly, we'd both indulge our daughter's little wishes. One weekend, we took Snowy to the zoo. She was so excited to see the pandas, waving her arms and legs. "Kitty," she'd point and shout at the pandas. Avery patiently corrected her. "It's a panda." Snowy learned diligently. "Panda." I held my daughter, looked at my wife, and felt immense gratitude. Thank you, fate, for giving me such a wonderful family. When Snowy was 3, she started kindergarten. On the first day, she cried heartbrokenly. "Mommy, don't go." She clung to Avery's leg. Avery's eyes welled up, and she almost took her home. Snowy is a brave girl. I squatted down to comfort our daughter. She sniffled. "Really?" I nodded. "Daddy believes in you." In the end, she stayed, though her eyes were still red. At pickup, we waited early by the gate. Seeing her run out happily, we finally relaxed. Teacher praised my pretty writing, said it's like Mommy's, she said proudly. Avery picked her up. "Snowy's amazing." These days were ordinary yet precious. Every night, we'd read picture books together. Snowy loved hearing the story of how we met. Daddy said Mommy's handwriting was like chicken scratch. She'd giggle. Avery would glare at me. "Look what you're telling our daughter." I'd smile and dodge. It's the truth. When Snowy was 5, Avery's Ph.D. dissertation was approved. She became the youngest female Ph.D. in the university. At the graduation ceremony, Snowy wore a little dress, like a tiny princess. "Mommy's so smart," she said, watching Avery receive her award on stage. I held our daughter. "Mommy's always been smart." Avery waved at us from the stage, her smile radiant. That evening, we popped champagne to celebrate. First toast to my amazing partner. Avery raised her glass. I smiled and clinked glasses. "To my dearest Dior Miller." Snowy raised her juice. "To Daddy and Mommy." We smiled at each other and drank. Time flew, and love was eternal. We knew the road ahead was still long. But as long as we had each other, every day would be new happiness. Just like Snowy growing up, our love, too, deepened with the years, becoming richer, more precious. When Snowy was 6, she had her first big day, starting elementary school. The night before, the little one was too excited to sleep, organizing her tiny backpack 3 times over. "Mommy, how many pencils should I bring?" "Daddy, is this Miffy rabbit eraser prettier or the little bear one?" Avery patiently answered each question, her eyes full of tenderness. I leaned against the doorframe, watching them, my heart softening. Nights like these were ordinary yet precious. The next morning, Snowy woke up early and dressed herself in her school uniform. "Mommy, Daddy, hurry up," she urged impatiently. Avery carefully braided her hair and tied a red bow. "Our little princess looks beautiful," I said, picking up our daughter and spinning her around. Snowy giggled, her cheeks flushed. At the school gate, many parents were dropping off their children. Snowy tightly held our hands, both nervous and excited. "Daddy will pick you up after school," I said, squatting down to straighten her collar. Avery kissed her forehead. "Listen to your teacher." Snowy nodded vigorously, then walked into the school gate with her small backpack. Halfway in, she suddenly turned and ran back, throwing herself into our arms. "I'll miss you," she whispered. At that moment, Avery's eyes welled up. On the way home, she was quiet. "What's wrong?" I took her hand. She said softly, "I just feel like she's growing up too fast." I put my arm around her shoulder. "But she'll always be our little baby." The coffee shop was unusually quiet today. Without Snowy's cheerful chatter, it felt like something was missing. At noon, Avery kept checking her phone. "It's only been half a day, and I already miss her," she sighed. I smiled and kissed her cheek. "You'll see her tonight." At 3 in the afternoon, I went to pick up Snowy at school early. Many parents were already waiting at the gate. The dismissal bell rang, and children poured out like little birds. Snowy was the last one out, holding hands with a shy little boy. "Daddy," she waved happily when she saw me. I walked over and took her small backpack. "This is Timmy, my new friend," Snowy introduced. The little boy timidly called me uncle. On the way home, Snowy chattered nonstop. Teacher praised my neat writing, said it's like Mommy's. Timmy sits next to me. He doesn't talk much. The chicken drumstick for lunch was so good, I ate too. Avery was waiting for us at the coffee shop in trance. Seeing her mom, Snowy dashed over. Mommy, I miss you so much. The sight of mother and daughter hugging was incredibly heartwarming. That night, after Snowy was asleep, we sat on the patio. Time flies so fast. Avery leaned on my shoulder. I still remember her as a newborn. I gently stroked her long hair. Now she's an elementary schooler. The stars in the night sky were exceptionally bright, just like Snowy's bright eyes. That weekend, we took Snowy to the amusement park. She loved the merry-go-round the most, riding it over and over again. Mommy, Daddy, let's ride together, she tugged at our hands. Avery and I exchanged a smile and joined her on the merry-go-round. To the sound of music, Snowy laughed happily. Avery leaned into my arms, her eyes tender. It feels like when we first started dating, she whispered. I squeezed her hand, even happier than back then. After getting off the merry-go-round, Snowy spotted cotton candy. Only one, Avery said. Snowy nodded obediently, took the pink cotton candy, and offered it to us first. Daddy, Mommy, you first. Avery and I smiled at each other, each tearing off a small piece. The sweet taste melted in our mouths, just like our lives. In October, Avery's birthday arrived. Snowy secretly prepared a surprise. She used her own pocket money to buy a small cake and drew a picture. The drawing was our family portrait, the three of us holding hands, smiling brightly. Happy birthday, Mommy. That evening, Snowy came out with the cake. Avery gasped in surprise, covering her mouth. Thank you, sweetie. I presented the gift I'd prepared, a pearl necklace. It matches the snowflake necklace I gave you perfectly, I said, helping her put on. She looked in the mirror, tears in her eyes. I love it. Snowy tugged at her mom's hand. Mommy is the prettiest mommy in the world. That night, we ate cake, watched a movie, and cuddled on the sofa like we did when we were dating. Snowy was in the middle, leaning on me one moment, then on Avery the next. I love Daddy and Mommy the most, she murmured sleepily, gradually drifting off. I carried her to bed and tucked her in. Back in the living room, Avery was tidying up. I hugged her from behind. It's been a lot. She turned and leaned into my arms. It's pure happiness. Outside, the moonlight was perfect, just like the night of our first kiss. Time flowed, and love grew deeper. In December, a heavy snow fell. Snowy excitedly pressed her face to the window. Daddy, let's build a snowman. I dressed her warmly, like a little bundle. Avery also put on a scarf and joined us in the yard. Snowy happily rolled snowballs, her little face red from the cold. Mommy, come help, she called out to Avery. The three of us built a big snowman. Snowy put her own scarf on the snowman and found a carrot for its nose. It looks like Daddy, she said, pointing at the snowman. Avery laughed. It really does. I pretended to be annoyed and tickled her, and Snowy joined the playful attack. The yard was filled with laughter. After building the snowman, we went back inside to the warmth. Avery brewed hot cocoa, and Snowy sipped her mug carefully. Today was so fun, she said contentedly. I looked at mother and daughter, my heart warm. This was the life I had dreamed of. For New Year's, we took Snowy back to my hometown. Grandpa and Grandma were overjoyed to see their granddaughter. Our Snowy has grown so tall, Grandma said, stroking her head. Snowy, with her sweet talk, had Grandpa and Grandma laughing heartily. On New Year's Eve, we made dumplings and watched the New Year's Eve special. Snowy, though she was growing up, insisted on staying up until midnight. It's our tradition, she said seriously. In the end, she fell asleep in my arms. When the clock struck midnight, Avery and I exchanged a smile. Happy New Year, she whispered. I kissed her forehead. Happy New Year. Snowy in my arms mumbled something in her sleep, a smile on her lips. A new year, new happiness. In March, Avery received an invitation to an international conference. It was in Switzerland for a week. This time you really have to come with me, she said while packing. I heard that university's art museum is beautiful. I nodded. Okay, let's take Snowy too, I suggested. It'll be good for her to see the world. Avery hesitated. Won't it be too much trouble? Snowy, hearing about flying, was incredibly excited. I want to go. I want to go. Finally, we decided to go as a family. On the plane, Snowy was glued to the window, watching the sea of clouds. It looks like cotton candy, she said. Avery patiently explained the principles of flight to her. I watched them, my heart full of pride. The snowy landscape of Switzerland was beautiful, like a fairy tale. Snowy saw real, snow-capped mountains for the first time, her mouth agape in wonder. So pretty. During the conference, I took Snowy sightseeing. She loved riding the cable car most, going up and down several times. Don't I look like I'm flying? She asked, spreading her arms and laughing happily. I sent photos to Avery, and she replied with an envious emoji. I'll spend tomorrow having fun with you too, she promised. After the conference, we went to Jungfraujoch. Standing on the peak of the snow-capped mountain, Snowy jumped with excitement. I'm the happiest kid in the world, she shouted. Avery leaned on my shoulder. I'm the happiest person in the world too. Sunlight shone on the snow, reflecting a dazzling glow, just like our future, bright and warm. After returning home, Snowy drew pictures of her travels. There were snow-capped mountains, cable cars, and our 3 smiling faces. She pasted the drawings on a coffee shop wall, and customers loved them. What a talented little artist, customers would often praise her. Snowy would always shyly hide behind her mom. In April, Avery's research on coffee shop themes was published. She used our coffee shop as a case study, researching small business operating models. At the book launch, she invited me as a special guest. This book is dedicated to my husband and daughter, she said on stage. You are my inspiration and my support. Snowy, sitting in the front row, clapped vigorously. I looked at her, filled with pride. After the book signing, we went to celebrate. Snowy ordered the biggest ice cream. To celebrate Mommy's new book, she raised her tiny spoon. Avery smiled and clinked spoons with her. Thanks, sweetie. The moonlight that night was exceptionally gentle, falling on mother and daughter, like a beautiful painting. In May, Snowy participated in her school's drawing competition. She drew her coffee shop with Daddy and Mommy inside and customers drinking coffee. She won first place. At the awards ceremony, she nervously gripped my hand. When she heard her name called, her eyes widened in surprise. Go up and get your award. Avery gently nudged her. Snowy walked onto the stage and accepted her certificate and prize. Thank you, Mommy and Daddy, she said softly into the microphone. Applause erupted from the audience. We were both so proud of her. After school, she gave her prize, a new set of colored pencils, to Avery. Mommy worked hard on her new book. Avery hugged her, touched. Thank you, sweetie. I put my arms around both of them. What about Daddy? Snowy thought for a moment, then kissed my cheek. This is for Daddy. We both laughed. On summer nights, we often watched the stars on the patio. Snowy had learned many constellations. That's the Big Dipper. That's Andromeda. She'd point to the sky. Avery leaned on my shoulder and said softly, Time flies so fast. I held her hand. But we're still like when we were dating. Snowy turned her head. We're Daddy and Mommy whispering about. I smiled and pulled her into our embrace. We're talking about how much we love you. She leaned into our arms contentedly. I love you too. The stars in the night sky twinkled, bearing witness to our happiness. We knew the road ahead was still long. But as long as we had each other, every day would be new sweetness. Like the summer night starlight, eternal and brilliant. On Snowy's 10th birthday, our family returned to our old high school campus. The maple trees were even more lush than they had been, and the academic buildings had been repainted. But that youthful thrill still lingered in the air. This is where Daddy and Mommy met. Snowy looked around curiously. Avery smiled and nodded. Right in that office. She pointed to a window on the second floor. I held her hand. Someone once said your handwriting was like chicken scratch there. She glared playfully at me. You still dare to say that. Snowy giggled. So Daddy liked Mommy that early. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows, just like back then. We went to our old classroom and sat in the back row. Avery leaned on my shoulder and said softly, It feels like we're back in high school. I put my arm around her shoulder. But we're happier than back then. Snowy took out her camera and took our picture. Mommy, Daddy, look here. We smiled at each other and kissed as our daughter snapped the photo. Just like that kiss on the basketball court years ago. Sweet and eternal. After her birthday party, we took Snowy to an amusement park. She was finally tall enough for the roller coaster and was incredibly excited. Mommy and Daddy, ride with me. Avery was a little scared, but I squeezed her hand tightly. I'm here. When the roller coaster started, she squeezed her eyes shut. Snowy happily threw her hands in the air, and Avery and I interlaced our fingers. The wind roared in our ears like lost youth. But our clasped hands never let go. When we got off, Avery was pale, but smiling happily. It feels like being young again. Snowy pulled us to ride the Ferris wheel. At the very top, she suddenly said, "Mommy and Daddy, you have to stay together forever." "Of course," we said in unison. The setting sun painted the sky golden, just like our love. Eternal and brilliant. When winter came, the coffee shop celebrated its 10th anniversary. We redecorated the shop, keeping its original style. The walls were covered with photos from over the years. From opening day, to our wedding, to each of Snowy's birthdays. "Time flies so fast," Avery said softly, tracing a photo. I hug her from behind. But every day has been happy. On the anniversary, we invited all our old friends. Liam Carter was married, with his wife and child. Noah had become a company executive, and Liam was teaching at a university. Even Ryan came with his girlfriend. "I can't believe you two really made it 10 years, Liam said, sounding reflective. I looked at Avery, who was greeting guests. "And we'll make it through many more decades." Snowy, in a beautiful little dress, helped out like a tiny hostess. "This shop is named after me," she proudly told the customers. Avery smiled tenderly. "Actually, it's after Mommy's name." But we were both happy for our daughter to believe that, because she was the fruit of our love. That evening, I presented the gift I prepared. It was a thick photo album documenting every little moment from when we first met until now. The first picture was our high school graduation photo, and the last was a family photo from last week. Avery flipped through it, tears welling up in her eyes. "You kept all of these?" I nodded. "Every one is a precious memory." Snowy also took out her gift, a drawing. It depicted the coffee shop, with the three of us standing at the entrance. The title was our forever home. Avery hugged her daughter. "Thank you, sweetie." That night, we slept in each other's arms, just like every night before, warm and peaceful. In spring, Avery was promoted to full professor. She became the youngest female professor at the university. At the awards ceremony, Snowy and I sat in the front row. As she went up to receive her award, Snowy clapped vigorously. "Mommy's so smart," she whispered. I held our daughter's hand. "Mommy's always been smart." Avery smiled at us from the stage. In that moment, I felt immense pride. That evening, we celebrated at the coffee shop. Snowy secretly prepared a cake, decorated with a doctoral cap and a coffee cup. "Congratulations, Mommy," she said happily. Avery hugged us, touched. "I couldn't have gotten here without you two." I kissed her forehead. "This is well-deserved." Moonlight streamed through the window, gentle as water. In summer, we took Snowy to the beach, where we had our first trip. The sand was the same, the waves were the same. Only now, our daughter was with us. "Is this where Daddy and Mommy became official?" Snowy asked curiously. Avery nodded. "Yes." I held her hand. "It was here that I decided I wanted to be with you forever." She smiled. "Were you that sure back then?" I nodded. "I was sure from the first moment I saw you." The sun set, painting the sea golden as we walked hand in hand on the beach. Snowy was ahead, picking up seashells, occasionally looking back at us with a smile. "Look, I found a heart-shaped shell." The waves gently lapped the shore, like an eternal promise. We knew the road ahead was still long. But as long as we had each other, every day would be new happiness. Just like the sunset at the beach. It sets every day and rises again. And love, it always remains. It was late, and Snowy was fast asleep. Avery and I sat on the patio, watching the stars. 10 years, she whispered. I held her hand. Feels like yesterday. She leaned on my shoulder. Thank you for giving me such a happy life. I kissed her hair. I should be the one saying thank you. The stars in the night sky twinkled, bearing witness to our love. From naive to mature, from 2 people to 3. But love remained constant. Will we be together forever? She asked. I nodded. Forever. Moonlight was gentle, and love was eternal. We knew this was the best ending. Not an end, but a new beginning. In a world of love, there is never a finish line. Only eternal sweetness. End.